Hello everyone, this is KIDM the Man bringing you all another Rush figure review of the Hasbro's Power Rangers Lightning Collection, Power Rangers Turbo Red Ranger. It took a while, but we're finally here because this is our final Wave 15 figure of our Rush review series. Now this will be the exact same format as we have seen from RPM Yellow as well as Lightspeed Blue, so I really do hope that all of you are enjoying it so far. If you want a proper first impression review of this figure, you can check out my previous live stream where I take a look at all of Wave 15 in its entirety. We've waited long enough, so without further ado, let's take a closer look at TJ, the Red Turbo Ranger. Now, in case you didn't know, the Japanese counterpart of Turbo is actually known as Car Ranger in Japan. Car Ranger is actually meant to be like a parody series to all of the other different types of Sentai, and it really did save the Sentai franchise back in its time. However, for the rest of the world, in terms of Power Rangers perspective, it nearly kinda destroyed the whole Power Rangers brand. I believe it's because they really wanted to try something different with Turbo, but I can't really remember that much. All I can remember is that I really enjoyed Turbo when I was watching it on TV. And the helmet of the figure really does look like it came straight out of it. It's nicely molded and painted down to the minute details of the grills on the visor. It's molded so well to the point where Hasbro used their shiny silver paint on it. Out of all of the Turbo Ranger visors, Red Lightning was definitely my favorite one. We can see that Hasbro did use the shiny silver for the rims on the side of his helmet, and it's nice to see how they did not forget about the sunroof on the top of the helmet. Honestly speaking, with how amazing the Turbo Red helmet looks, it really does get me excited to see what they're gonna do with the rest of the Turbo team. That's because TJ here definitely came out very clean out of the production line. Since Turbo Red here is using another new body mode, there's something new about his neck. Popping the helmet right off, we are able to see that this particular neck does have an Adam's apple. And just like Chad in my previous video, you are able to rotate this particular neck joint, giving you a much more natural neck or head turn rotation. However, due to how this neck has been engineered, you cannot really allow the helmet or the figure to look up as far as previous figures. So that is another downside to us wanting to have a natural look. Putting the lack of neck articulation aside, I really do like how Hasbro has found a way to include the design of the turbo suit nicely printed on to the torso of the figure. Just like Lightspeed Blue, since the whole suit design has been printed on to the torso of the plastic, you really have to be careful when handling him, because if you're not, you will encounter some paint chipping if you play with him too roughly. And that would really be a shame because Hasbro still included the printing of the design at the back of the neck. The situation here would be different if the patterns here was molded on, but that would mean we would have to pay a hefty price for a Lightning Collection figure, just like how we paid a lot of money for the Street Fighter characters. Thank goodness that Turbo Red's design isn't so complicated, otherwise if we were to arch the figure backwards, we would be getting some kind of patterns underneath the torso. And since we don't, we can pose Turbo Red in whatever position we like, and it won't break his suit illusion. Due to the design of the new torso, the arms of the figure does stick out slightly bit more. Now, although it might not look as natural as our existing Lightning Collection figures, I actually kinda like it. The main reason is because this time you can actually have the arms resting on the side of the torso, whereas for the older versions of the Lightning Collection, they kinda look like they're in a 45-degree angle. The decals on the suit is nicely printed on as well, where we can see the Car Ranger logo on the right hand shoulder and the Ranger number logo on the left hand side of the shoulder. The new arm here is pinless, so it doesn't ruin the illusion. However, since there is an elbow joint here, it does interrupt the straight lines on the elbow area of the figure. If you're okay with this design, then it shouldn't bother you as much. The gloves of the figure is similar to the Lightspeed Rescue Blue Ranger design, where it's initially molded in red plastic with some black and white paint painted over it. I don't think I've had any paint chipped off on my existing Ranger figures on the glove area, but still you have to be extra careful. As for the belt of the figure, it's nicely molded in a soft rubber plastic. What I'm really impressed here is that they were able to still use the shiny silver paint along the grills of the belt, and they've also managed to include some bright yellow paint in the center of it. It's literally like the lights of the front of a car for a belt buckle. This type of belt design is really unique, and I like how it came out. For the weapon holster, it's not like it is a simple tube of soft rubber plastic attached to the side of the belt. Hasbro actually did take some time in carving it out and molding it just as how it looked like on the show. Of course, you all know what kind of weapon should be put in here, but we will get to that later. As usual, since this is a brand new body mold, we got some new legs. At first glance, it does look like your standard Lightning Collection legs, however these legs are attached to some drop down hips. I'm sure you've heard about me talking about how good they are from previous videos, and of course some live stream reviews, so I don't think I'm gonna bore you in this particular review. All I can say is do treat it with care, otherwise you might break your particular copy. As I have seen online images where people have broken their particular figures that has the drop down hips. That and prepare some joint stiffening agent ready, because they can get really loose over time. Other than that, the suit design does continue on the sides of the legs. Sadly though, since there is a thigh swivel available, it really will be breaking the illusion if you were to rotate his particular thigh. Now it might not bother some of you, but I'm sure certain toy photographers don't really like this particular thing. We do still get our standard issue Lightning Collection boots. These are very simple white boots with some black outlines at the edge of the boot. And since the black lines are painted, you've guessed it, you gotta try not to chip off the paint while playing with your toys. He comes with fists that moves in and out, and weapon holding hands that moves side to side. These are definitely blaster holding hands, but we've gotta work with what we've got. The auto blaster that he comes with is nicely molded and painted in a soft rubbery type of plastic. Seriously, this particular weapon is really very flexible. Of course, by default, the handle of the weapon is actually meant to be black, but we already know what happens to weapon handles that are actually painted. The chip is what I'm actually saying, but the main paint of the particular weapon is nicely painted on as well, so that is what really matters. Sadly though, this particular auto blaster doesn't transform into its different version. Plus, I also don't see any other ports where you might have a possibility of combining it with the Turbo Navigator that comes with the Phantom Ranger. This looks like it's gonna be a new trend because the tip of the blaster does actually have a peg hole, which means you can take a blasting or a shooting effect piece and put it in, giving you even more options for some dynamic poses. Which isn't gonna be an issue since the hand that comes with Turbo Red is actually meant for a blaster weapon, so things doesn't look out of place. The turbo blade that he comes with is pretty much my favorite weapon to come out from this set. The main reason for that is because I can see that this weapon is actually molded in a red plastic, and almost 95% of the weapon is painted in a shiny silver paint, with a little bit of clear yellow for the center of the turbo blade. Learning from past mistakes, in order to avoid some weapon handle paint chipping, Hasbro decided to go through this particular route. It's definitely nicely molded and painted, plus it's pretty sturdy. Even the handle also does have a little bit of that shiny silver paint. In the event if this doesn't bother you, you can use his existing arms to hold on to the weapon. Only downside is you get a random index finger slightly pointing out. But not to worry, since his particular hands are a white glove, we do have multiple different types of white glove weapon holding hands from our all existing Lightning Collection sets. TJ also comes with his signature weapon, the Turbo Lightning Sword, or Defender Sword, from the Sentai counterpart. The red handguard is molded in a soft rubber plastic material, and we also get the Car Ranger logo nicely printed on. You should know this by now, but in case if you don't, the entirety of the weapon is molded in a red plastic, and as you can see, the same shiny silver paint is consistent with the rest of the accessories that comes with this particular set. As I mentioned before in my live stream, the underside of the Defender Sword does look like it can separate, and after playing with it for a little while, it actually can. I did however chip the paint a little bit, but that's okay for this discovery. This is a real big discovery because it can either mean one of two things. Number one, this is the only way that they can make Defender Sword, or number two, we might have a Lightning Collection Turbo Ram combination coming very soon. Because looking at other old deluxe toy line pictures and how the Turbo Ram is supposed to be, if the arm guard of the Defender Sword is actually movable, we can keep the weapon in this position for the combination. So I am definitely looking forward to that. Since this weapon has a handguard, I suppose the weapon holding hands that comes with Turbo Red won't actually bother me as much, as the slight raise of the index finger is actually being covered up by the Fender sword. So I guess I can forgive Hasbro for that. The effect piece that we got is similar to all of the other existing effect piece from the Lightning Collection. You can easily slip in the weapons in between all of the tiny little holes of the effect piece, thus giving you even more dynamic poses. Sadly though, we only get one copy of this particular effect piece, so you're gonna have to go into your effect piece storage box and give TJ another one, just for some consistency. Last but not least, we get a very handsome civilian head. This is practically our third TJ head sculpt, and I think Hasbro has done a very amazing job in capturing the way he looks. Sadly though, I don't have a comparison picture here, but basically speaking, they managed to capture each and every one of his particular facial features, as well as printing on his eyes on the particular head. Plus, they really didn't mess up the hair. Remind me again, did TJ actually had a little bit of hair in Turbo? If he did, then this is the best TJ head sculpt to date. Since we don't have another Turbo Ranger for a comparison, here's one with another TJ. As mentioned previously in my last video, the neck on the older body mode basically allows a figure to look up very far. That's because there is a particular hinge in between it. Now, although the new body mode does have a natural left and right type of look due to the neck rotation, the ability to look up is highly dependent on the shape of the helmet. If there's more space at the back of the helmet, that means the helmet can look up even more. If not, you're basically stuck with a figure that can only see straight. Now, other than mentioning that the torso of the figures look very different, this is what I'm referring to when I mention that the hands can finally be positioned straight alongside the torso, as the older body mode does have their torso slightly bit large, meaning that it is preventing the arms to point straight down, making it being in a position of a 35-degree angle, so it's definitely up to you to decide which one is better. Here's a look at the differences between the arms of the figures, one being pinless and one being with pins. And finally the hip joints, which you should know the main differences by now. Since the older one doesn't have any kind of drop down hips, you only have a limited range of articulation. But for Turbo Red, he does have slightly bit extra more movement. It's still a hit or miss though. Here he is next to the previously reviewed Lightspeed Rescue Blue Ranger and the previously reviewed RPM Yellow Ranger. And that's all for Wave 15. There's also the Figurized Standard Fang Joker, the Kotobukiya exclusive Metaclear Metabi, a custom Ryuso Brown, a Legacy Collection Red Ranger, and Decade. So all in all, TJ is definitely an amazing figure. After so many years of the Lightning Collection's conception, we finally get our first Turbo Ranger. Yes, we have had the Phantom Ranger and the Blue Centurion, but those are considered as extra heroes. And I hope with the existence of this figure, we finally get to end the debate on whether or not does Hasbro have the rights to create Turbo Rangers. He also comes with every essential accessory that you would want in a Lightning Collection figure, so that way we don't necessarily have to buy duplicates in the future just to get some missing weapons. The next thing that we have to be concerned about would be the difference in weapon variation. I'm talking about the Turbo Blaster, of course. But other than that, I really am excited to see whether or not will we be getting a Turbo Ram based on the other weapons that comes with the other Turbo Rangers. Because if I'm right, that would make it our second combinable weapons in the Lightning Collection right after the Mighty Morphin Rangers. Because having the Rangers posing with the Turbo Ram would really look awesome on your shelf. Speaking of, how does Wave 15 look on the shelf? So, if you like this video, blast that like button, leave a comment down below, let me know how excited you are for getting your first Turbo Ranger, share this video with your friends and family to let them know that Turbo Red is coming to your town, and of course, feel free to subscribe, as there's always amazing new content coming your way. Plus, it will help the channel. I really do hope that you guys like this type of rush review type of format, so do let me know in the comments down below on how I can improve it even more. I still have a lot of unopened figures, so please do check out my live streams when I do decide to open them. This is KIDM the Man, and I'll see you all next time.